Okay, I'm making this video to explain tunes and the tolerances involved. Alright, so when someone asks for a tune and they want no play, alright, it's doable, but here's the problem with that. Once that knife is locked up, the pivots are cranked, oil is applied, and it's on its way back. You know, it's low. There's no play in it. It might be a little flex, but that's because you have a lot of moving parts, two different handles and a blade. So there's a little flex to it, but it's not actually movement in the pivots. So here's the drawback to a no play tune. If you decide to, say, on the case of a replicant, maybe change the scales after you get it back, or remove the latch, or anything where you have to loosen those pivots, even if you just have to loosen them, you know, just breaking their tightness, you know, so you can get the handles to spread, so you can get a spacer out, or a latch, or something like that, or scales in general. So now, you have your pivot, which is a 3/16 pivot. Your washer has a 3/16 inner diameter. Now, that's what they would call nominal measurements. You know, that's classified as a 3/16, which is a measurement of 0.188 inches. But if you measure any 3/16 pivot, you're going to find that it's probably like 0.187 or 0.186. And if you measure a 3/16 washer inner diameter, you're going to see that it's like 0.189, 0.191, somewhere in there. Those are actual versus nominal measurements. It's tolerance, hysteresis, and machining. It's just, it's appropriate and it's proper, and there doesn't need to be a need for it to be any tighter. But I have a little visual illustration here, because this leaves a lot of confusion with a lot of people. So what we have here, okay, we have, let's say in the case of a replicant, a blade that's 0.12500. Now, your bushing, let's say, if you take it to a good tune with no tap, acceptable play, you know, there's play, probably about, if you do the old little trick like this, I need that, yeah, just for a minute. If you do this trick, you know, you'll see about a liner's worth of play, or maybe a little more. But it won't tap, and it'll be free swinging. So what happens is, taking it 1/1000th over, it's acceptable, but it leaves play. Now, no play is going to be under that 1/1000th. So you're talking about, you make your bushing 70/10,000th over blade thickness. That's going to give you no play, no tap, free swing. Now what happens when you install a new set of washers and a bushing? Okay, this is the pivot and everything loose before it's cranked down. This is after, and this is exaggerated the way this is collapsed, just for illustration purposes. So when you crank that pivot down, you know, phosphor bronze washers are soft, and that's why they're used. And they're also lubricious, if that's a word. They're like they're self-lubricating. So when you take, so now we got this bushing, right, on a super tight tune, that's 70/10,000ths over. So that's meaning on either side of the blade, you know, your blade, okay, on either side of the blade, you have a space that the bushing sticking out past the blade about 35/10,000ths, okay? So the goal is, when you tighten it down and you crush that initial groove into the washer collapses. And this is what I mean by that. So say you have a pillow, okay, and you put your fist into it. As I put my fist tighter, you see how my fist is sitting deeper in it, and the outside of the pillow collapsed around my hand. And if you go further, you're going to just completely fold it in, like, you know, it's collapsing around my hand. That's what the washer's doing on a level. So the tune's tight, everything's good. Now you decide to undo your pivots to put some scales on. Remember how we said actual is about 0.189, 0.190, and your pivots are like 0.187, 0.186. You know, so you got a little play in there. So what happens is, if that washer moves from its original position, which it's likely to do, like it's 99% likely to do, and you go ahead and crank those pivots down again. But anyway, let me get back to this first. So you have 35 10,000ths on either side of the blade. You're hoping for, when you crunch that washer in, that washer thickness is going to just make up about 30 10,000ths of space, leaving 500,000ths of clearance, and that's giving you your free swinging on your blade. Remember, these figures are all academic, just for discussion purposes. You know, it could be, you know, 40, 10,000, whatever, but it's just for discussion purposes. So that's giving you no play, you know, free swinging. So now you undid this and everything, and you go to hit that, and say this bushing, okay, it kind of hits that groove a little bit off center. So now it's going to recollapse the washer, but remember, this was already collapsed once. So already you have a dish out of right around your hole in your washer. It's dished. And you're going to do that again. But remember, this dish up here, it's already sitting forward more. So when you go to crush that down again, it's going to collapse even more drastically, and it's going to rub your blade. And you're going to get that when you open it, and it's going to feel like, oh, it caught right there, you know. So that's why I kind of try to talk people out of a no play tune. Because say if we just took this bushing to 1/10,000th over, not under a 10,000th, okay, we still have the collapsing of the washer and everything, blah blah blah. But what it's giving you is giving you the freedom to, you know, change your knife or loosen it or take it apart to clean it, and it's letting you do it again. Now in this tune, you're going to need new washers every time you loosen that, and even on a little less tight of a tune, you should do new washers. But it's not as critical, because remember, we have 30 10,000ths extra space to play with. So more than likely, when you crush that washer again and you miss that fucking original mark, you know, it's going to collapse differently, but it's not going to be rubbing. You know what I'm saying? So that's the difference. You see what I'm saying? When that washer collapses on a super tight tune, it's just perfectly making up that little bit of a gap on each side of the blade. So that's what happens when you get a super tight tune. Like I said, you know, as long as it's not tapping and as long as it's not rubbing, that's good. I understand people want a god level tune, and I have no problem giving them that, but I also have a bit of a moral issue with it, because then you know, they're at the mercy of possibly sending the knife back in because they think it's wrong, or going, hey, this modder, you know, fucking tune this knife like a jackass, and they're going to send it to another modder, and they're just going to be in this cycle of thinking there's something wrong with their knife, or someone did something wrong, but it's really just they got what they asked for. Most people won't explain this to you. I prefer to, because, you know, it's ultimately it's a issue of customer satisfaction. And like I said, I have no problem giving anybody that super tight tune. Just understand, you take that shit apart, you're gonna need new washers every single time. Like, you can flip them, but you see, the thing of that is it's the same thing here, because you're still dished out, you still have a thinner spot, and you're gonna hit that in, it's gonna collapse harder. Like, it's just how it is. So think about that. Leave comments if you want. And that's a clone, by the way. A fantastic clone, by the way.